The warning alarm started blaring across the Galactic console assembly station exactly 3 minutes before the human ship arrived. Consul Prime Vexithara watched her instrument panels with growing confusion as every sensor in the docking bay began displaying impossible readings. "This cannot be correct," she said, her crystalline body shimmering with agitation. Her species had been monitoring space traffic for thousands of years. Nothing surprised them anymore, until today. Trade Director Kulmuth crossed all 4 of his arms and leaned closer to the viewing screen. "Maybe their ship is damaged. Those energy signatures make no sense." "It's not damaged," military observer Grenth rumbled, his reptilian features tense. "I've seen damaged ships. This is something else entirely." The human vessel appeared on the main screen and the entire command center fell silent. It didn't look particularly impressive. Compared to the massive console ships with their elegant curves and glowing power cores, the human ship seemed almost plain. A simple silver cylinder with a few external modules. Nothing special. But the readings told a different story. "The power signature keeps changing," Vexithara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "One moment it shows 0 output. The next moment it spikes to levels that would destroy any known reactor. How is their ship not melting?" "Perhaps their instruments are interfering with ours," Kulmuth suggested. "No," Vexithara said firmly. "I've compensated for that. These readings are real. That ship is doing something that violates at least 7 fundamental laws of physics." Grenth's hand moved to his weapon instinctively. "Should we consider them a threat?" "They requested peaceful contact," Vexithara reminded him. "And they've been following all our docking procedures perfectly. Whatever they are, they're not hostile." The human ship glided into the docking bay with impossible smoothness. No thrusters fired. No gravitational displacement. It simply moved, as if space itself was politely stepping aside for it. "That's not normal," Kulmuth said unnecessarily. An hour later, Ambassador Chen Wei walked into the Grand Assembly Hall, and every eye in the chamber fixed on her. She was surprisingly small compared to most of the species present. Her brown skin and dark hair seemed almost plain next to the colorful representatives of 47 different worlds. But she walked with confidence, a slight smile on her face. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Chen began, her voice clear and steady, "I bring greetings from Earth and humanity. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge." The formal part of the meeting went smoothly. Chen presented Earth's application for membership, shared cultural information, and answered basic questions about human society. Everything was perfectly diplomatic and proper. Then Vexithara asked the question everyone was thinking. "Ambassador Chen, we've analyzed your ship's approach. Our instruments detected readings that seem to violate known physics. Can you explain your propulsion system?" Chen's smile widened slightly. "Of course. We don't use conventional faster-than-light travel, if that's what you're asking." "Then how did you cross interstellar distances?" Kulmuth demanded. "We use probability tunneling," Chen said casually, as if she'd just mentioned taking a bus. "Our ship exists in multiple locations simultaneously until we observe it at our destination. It's quite efficient, actually." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted questions in dozens of languages. Vexithara's crystalline body flashed through colors that indicated severe distress in her species. "That's impossible," someone shouted. "Nothing can exist in multiple locations at once," another voice added. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down. "With respect, it's clearly not impossible. We do it regularly. Has for about 80 years now." Grenth stood up, his massive form commanding attention. "Ambassador, are you claiming that humans have mastered quantum superposition at a macro scale?" "Mastered is a strong word," Chen said. "But yes, we use it." "Is that unusual?" "Unusual?" Vexithara's voice cracked. "It's theoretically impossible. The energy required to maintain quantum coherence in anything larger than a few atoms would exceed the output of an entire star." Chen tilted her head slightly. "Our reactor runs pretty hot, but it's manageable. We have good cooling systems. You know how hot?" Vexithara asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "About 30 million degrees Kelvin at the core," Chen said. "Give or take." The silence that followed was absolute. Every species present knew that temperature. It was the temperature of a star's core. No known material could contain such heat. No known reactor could produce it safely. "What materials do you use for containment?" Vexithara asked weakly. "Oh, we don't contain it exactly," Chen explained. We use a magnetic field that exists in 11 dimensions. The heat can't escape because from the reactor's perspective, there's nowhere to escape to. Kalmeth made a choking sound. 11 dimensions? We can barely manipulate 3. 4 if you count time. Really? Chen looked genuinely surprised. I thought dimensional manipulation was pretty standard. We've had it since the 2070s. Over the next hour, Chen answered questions, and each answer made the situation worse. Humans had technology that casually violated laws the entire Galactic Council considered absolute. They had computers that thought faster than light. They had materials that shouldn't exist. They had medical technology that could rebuild a body from almost nothing. And Chen described all of it with the same casual tone someone might use to discuss a coffee maker. Ambassador Chen, Vexithara said finally, how did humanity develop these technologies? Did you discover ancient artifacts? Did another species teach you? No, we figured it out ourselves, Chen said. Through experimentation and research. We call it the scientific method. Form a hypothesis, test it, analyze the results, repeat until you understand something. We know the scientific method, Kalmeth said, sounding offended. Every species here uses it. Oh, good, Chen said brightly. Then you'll understand our research papers. I've brought copies of everything. Thousands of studies, all peer-reviewed and documented. Vexithara felt something close to fear. If humans could do all this, what couldn't they do? And they were offering to share it freely? Why, she asked. Why share such powerful technology with strangers? Chen looked confused by the question. Because that's how science works? We share knowledge, we learn together, we all advance. Why would we keep it secret? The assembly session ended shortly after. The council members needed time to think, to analyze, to understand what they'd just learned. As Chen left the chamber, Granth approached Vexithara. We need to send a team to Earth, he said quietly. We need to see this for ourselves. Agreed, Vexithara said. And we need to understand how they did this. Because if their technology is real, then everything we know about the universe is wrong. Granth finished. Vexithara watched the human ambassador disappear down the corridor, still smiling that friendly smile. Behind that smile was a species that had somehow broken reality itself and didn't even seem to realize how impossible it all was. The council voted that evening. The decision was unanimous. A scientific expedition would travel to Earth immediately. They had to know the truth. They had to understand how humans had learned to cheat the universe. The journey to Earth's solar system took 3 weeks using standard console faster-than-light drives. Vexithara spent most of that time reviewing the research papers Ambassador Chen had provided. Each page made her more confused. This is madness, she muttered, reading a paper titled Practical Applications of Quantum Tunneling in Everyday Manufacturing. Kalmeth looked up from his own stack of papers. What did you find? According to this study, humans use quantum mechanics to build household furniture, Vexithara said. They describe it as basic 3D printing technology available in most homes. That's impossible. They have photographs and videos and testimonials from millions of users. Vexithara set the paper down. I don't understand how their entire civilization hasn't collapsed into a quantum singularity. Granth entered the research cabin, his expression grim. We're approaching the Sol system. You should come to the bridge. The moment their ship crossed into human space, every instrument went haywire. Again, sensors showing gravitational anomalies throughout the system, the pilot announced. But they don't match any natural phenomena. Vexithara studied the readings. Those aren't anomalies. Those are artificial structures. Humans have built stations around every planet, moon, and major asteroid in their system. How many people do they have? Kalmeth asked. According to their census, about 15 billion in the Sol system alone, Vexithara said. Another 3 billion in colony systems. 18 billion. Granth sounded shocked. How do they feed them all? Transport them? Manage the logistics? That's what we're here to find out, Vexithara said. A human voice crackled over the communication system. Console vessel, this is Earth Traffic Control. Welcome to Sol. We have you on approach Vector 7. Captain Marcus Rivera will be your military escort. Dr. Sarah Kim will be your scientific liaison. Please follow the guidance beacon to Station Unity. The guidance beacon appeared on their sensors, and what happened next made Vexithara's entire body flash with shock. Their ship began moving without their pilot touching any controls. "They're moving us?" Grenth's hand went to his weapon. "How?" "They've established a harmonic field around our vessel," the pilot reported, voice shaking. "It's gently pulling us along the designated path. I've never seen technology like this." A new ship appeared alongside them, sleek and silver, about half their size. A human face appeared on the communication screen. Captain Rivera, presumably. He had dark hair, darker skin, and a friendly smile that somehow made Vexithara more nervous. "Good to meet you in person, so to speak," Rivera said. "Don't worry about the guidance system. It's standard procedure for new visitors. We've had a few accidents with species not familiar with our traffic patterns. This way everyone stays safe." "You're controlling our ship," Grenth said, not quite making it a question. "Only the trajectory," Rivera assured him. "All your internal systems are completely yours. Think of it like a helpful current pulling you to shore. You can fight it if you want, but why work harder than you need to?" Station Unity was enormous. 10 times the size of the console assembly station, it hung in space between Earth and its moon like a glittering city. Ships of all sizes moved around, it in precise patterns, never colliding, always flowing smoothly. Dr. Sarah Kim met them at the docking port. She was young, probably barely an adult by human standards, with bright eyes and an excited smile. "This is so exciting," she said, shaking hands with each of them in the human custom. "We've never had console scientists visit before. I've prepared full demonstrations of everything you wanted to see." "Everything?" Vexithara asked cautiously. "Well, everything that's not classified for security reasons," Kim said. "But that's only about 5% of our technology. The rest is open source, available to anyone who wants to learn." She led them to a laboratory that looked surprisingly ordinary. Workbenches, computers, equipment that seemed normal, until Vexithara started examining it more closely. "This computer," she said slowly, "it's showing calculations happening faster than light speed allows." "Oh, that's because it's not really calculating in our dimension," Kim explained. "The processing happens in quantum space, where time is more flexible. The computer just retrieves the results. Makes it super fast." "Super fast," Colmeth repeated weakly. "You've created a device that processes information outside of normal time." "I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds impressive," Kim said, laughing. "But it's just standard quantum computing. Everyone has one. Kids use them for homework." Grenth picked up what looked like a simple tool. "What's this?" "Oh, careful with that," Kim said quickly. "That's a molecular assembler. It can rearrange matter at the atomic level. Great for repairs. But if you point it at something living, it could get messy." Grenth set it down very carefully. The demonstrations continued for hours, each one more impossible than the last. Kim showed them a medical scanner that could map a person's entire body, down to individual cells, in seconds. She showed them materials that changed properties based on what you needed. She showed them a reactor the size of a small box that produced enough power to run the entire laboratory. "How are you not dead?" Vexithara finally asked. "These technologies should produce radiation, heat, quantum decay. Your station should be a death trap." Kim looked puzzled. "We have shielding and safety protocols? I mean, accidents happen sometimes, but that's why we have the medical technology. We can fix most injuries now." "Most injuries?" Grenth asked. "We haven't quite figured out how to reverse death yet," Kim admitted. "But we can prevent almost everything else: brain damage, organ failure, genetic disorders. We can even slow aging. I have grandparents who are over 150 years old and still healthy." Vexithara felt her legs become unstable. She sat down on the nearest chair. "This is impossible, all of it. The energy requirements alone should exceed your civilization's total capacity." "Well, that's why we developed zero-point energy extraction," Kim said. "We pull energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. There's essentially unlimited energy available if you know how to tap it safely." "Safely?" Colmeth's voice rose. "You're extracting energy from the quantum vacuum? That could destabilize space-time itself. I mean, it could if you do it wrong, Kim agreed. That's why we have regulations and training. You need a license to operate the big extractors. The small ones are pretty safe, though. I have one in my apartment. She led them to a manufacturing facility next. Robots moved with fluid grace, assembling complex devices. But they weren't normal robots. Are those machines thinking? Vexithara asked. Sort of, Kim said. They're quantum-entangled AI systems. Not really conscious, but they can process problems creatively. We link them together so they can share information instantaneously. Instantaneous communication across distance, Granth said. That's supposed to be impossible. Quantum entanglement makes it possible, Kim explained. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. We call it really convenient for coordination. They watched as the robots assembled a complex device from raw materials in minutes. Perfect precision, no waste, incredible speed. 98% efficiency, Kim said proudly. We're still working on getting those last 2%. Vexithara thought about the console's best manufacturing, which operated at perhaps 40% efficiency. Humans had more than doubled that and were disappointed it wasn't perfect. The final demonstration nearly broke Vexithara's mind completely. Kim took them to an observation room overlooking Earth. That's your homeworld, Vexithara said. It looks pristine. Where are your industrial centers? Mostly underground or in orbital facilities, Kim said. We cleaned up the surface about 50 years ago, restored the ecosystems. Now we mostly use Earth for living, not manufacturing. You restored an entire planet's ecosystem? Well, yeah. It was getting pretty messed up. So we fixed it. Took a few decades, but it was worth it. As they prepared to leave, Vexithara finally asked the question that had been growing in her mind all day. Dr. Kim, your technology doesn't just break the laws of physics we know. It seems to rewrite them. How is this possible? Kim thought for a moment. I think maybe you're thinking about physics wrong. Like, you see laws as things that can't be broken. We see them more as guidelines, strong suggestions. The universe is way more flexible than most people think. The universe is not flexible, Vexithara said firmly. Physical laws are absolute. Kim smiled. Are they, though? Because we've been bending them for nearly a century now, and reality hasn't collapsed yet. That night aboard their ship, the 3 consul representatives sat in silence. They don't understand how impossible they are, Kolmeth finally said. Worse, Granth added. They don't care. Vexithara stared at the data she'd collected. The scans, the readings, the documentation. All of it proved that humans were doing the impossible, and they acted like it was normal. We need to report this to the consul immediately, she said. Because I think I know why human technology works when it shouldn't. And if I'm right, it changes everything we know about the universe. What? The emergency session of the Galactic Council began with Vexithara standing before representatives of 47 worlds. Her crystalline body pulsed with colors that indicated extreme stress. Behind her, holographic displays showed the data from Earth. Honored members, she began. What I am about to tell you will sound impossible, but I have verified it multiple times. The readings are accurate. She activated the first display. It showed the Sol system from a distance, overlaid with quantum field measurements. The human star system exists within a quantum fluctuation zone. Space itself is unstable there in ways we've never encountered before. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Representative Tholnax, whose species had studied physics for 10,000 years, stood up. That's absurd. Such zones would collapse instantly. They're mathematically possible, but physically unstable. Normally, yes, Vexithara agreed. But Sol's zone has been stable for billions of years, and it's affected everything in that system, including the species that evolved there. She changed the display to show human DNA scans. Human genetic code contains quantum markers. Their cellular structure operates partially in quantum superposition. They are quite literally beings that exist in multiple states simultaneously. The chamber erupted. Shouts of disbelief, demands for proof, accusations of fraud. Vexithara waited for order to be restored. I didn't believe it either, she said quietly. But the evidence is overwhelming. Humans evolved in an environment where quantum uncertainty is normal, where probability is flexible, where the impossible is merely improbable. Kolmuth stood to add his testimony. Their technology doesn't break physical laws. It negotiates with them. Humans instinctively understand probability, manipulation because they live it. Every moment of their existence. Show us the reactor data. Someone called out. Vexthera displayed the scans of a human reactor core. The readings made several representatives gasp. 30 million degrees, she said. But notice the containment field. It doesn't block the heat through force. It simply makes the heat exist in a state where it can't escape. The reactor is simultaneously hot and cold depending on observation. That violates thermodynamics. Tholnak shouted. No, Vexthera said. It redefines them. Humans don't think in terms of heat transfer. They think in terms of probability states. Will heat escape? Probably not. Therefore, it doesn't. She showed more data. The communication systems, the computers, the manufacturing technology. Each one displayed the same pattern. Humans weren't forcing reality to obey them. They were convincing reality that their desired outcome was the most likely probability. Grenth presented the military analysis. Their weapons are equally disturbing. They don't destroy matter through energy. They change the probability of matter existing. A target doesn't explode. It simply ceases to have ever been there. Can we defend against such weapons? Military Coordinator Vreshka asked. Only if we learn to manipulate probability ourselves, Grenth said. Which brings us to the critical question. Ambassador Chen, who had been sitting quietly in the observer section, was invited to speak. The consul must decide, Chen said, walking to the center of the chamber. Do you want to learn? Because we're willing to teach. But I need to be honest with you about something. She paused, making sure everyone was listening. Your species evolved in stable quantum environments. Your brains are wired to see physical laws as absolute, unchanging. That makes you excellent at engineering within those laws. But it also limits you. Limits us how? Someone asked. You can't imagine the impossible, Chen said simply. When you see something that violates known physics, your mind rejects it. You try to force it into familiar frameworks. That's why you can't use our technology safely. Vexthera nodded. She's correct. I've analyzed the theoretical foundation of human science. It requires accepting that you don't know everything. That reality is more flexible than you believe. For most species here, that's psychologically difficult. Are you saying we're too rigid to learn? Tholnak sounded offended. I'm saying you're different, Chen replied. Not worse, different. Your rigid thinking has let you build a stable civilization across hundreds of worlds. That's impressive. But it also means you need to learn a new way of thinking if you want to use probability-based technology. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Conservative members argued that humanity should be quarantined. Their technology was too dangerous, too destabilizing. If it spread through the console, it could destroy the carefully balanced civilization they'd built. Progressive members countered that humanity offered solutions to problems that had plagued them for millennia. Energy shortages, resource limitations, communication delays. Humans had solved all of it. What do you want from us? Consul Prime Vexthera finally asked Chen directly. Full membership in the Consul, Chen said. Equal status with every other species. And we want to share our knowledge freely, like we do among ourselves. And in return, access to your knowledge, Chen said. Your perspective. You see the universe differently than we do. That's valuable. We can learn from each other. What if we vote to quarantine your species? Asked Representative Morthal, leader of the conservative faction. Chen's smile didn't waver. Then you'll have made a choice. We'll respect it, but I should mention something. She tapped a device on her wrist. A display appeared showing computer network traffic. For the last 3 years, human internet has been accessible to anyone with basic hacking skills. It's completely open. We don't believe in keeping knowledge locked away. The chamber went silent. Are you saying, Vexthera said slowly, that your entire technological database is already available to the galaxy? Yes, Chen said. We publish everything. Open source, we call it. Anyone who wants to learn can access our research papers, our design documents, our instructional videos. It's all there. How many people have accessed it? Kolmuth asked. According to our logs, about 40 million individuals across console space, Chen said. Most just browsing out of curiosity. But several thousand have downloaded significant amounts of technical data. Chaos erupted again. The information was already out there. Quarantine was pointless. Why didn't you tell us this earlier? Vreshka demanded. You didn't ask, Chen said simply. We're not hiding anything. That's kind of the point. The vote, when it finally came, was close. 25 in favor of human membership, 22 against. It was enough. Humanity is granted provisional membership, Vexithara announced, but with restrictions. You may not share certain advanced technologies until we've established proper safety protocols. Which technologies? Chen asked. Vexithara listed them. Weapon systems, reality manipulation devices, consciousness transfer technology, temporal mechanics. Chen listened politely, then shook her head. I'm sorry, but we can't agree to that. What? We don't restrict knowledge, Chen said. That's a fundamental human principle. We can't compromise on it. Either you accept us as full members with no restrictions or we'll remain independent. You're refusing membership? Tholnax couldn't believe it. I'm refusing conditional membership, Chen corrected. We're happy to be equals. We won't be children who need supervision. The vote was called again. This time, with humanity's ultimatum clear, the decision was different. 30 votes in favor, 17 against. Humanity was granted full unrestricted membership. As the session ended, Vexithara approached Chen privately. You knew it would go this way, she said. I hoped, Chen admitted. Humans are optimistic by nature. I'm terrified, Vexithara confessed. Your technology in the wrong hands could destroy everything. So could fire, Chen said. Or nuclear energy. Or genetic engineering. Every tool is dangerous if misused. But the answer isn't to hide knowledge. It's to teach responsibility. What if someone uses your technology to build weapons? Then we'll deal with it, Chen said calmly. Together. That's what the Council is for, right? Mutual protection and support? Vexithara wanted to argue, but she'd seen human society. Their open sharing of knowledge had made them strong, not weak. Their acceptance of uncertainty had made them adaptable, not chaotic. Maybe, she thought, they were right. Maybe the Council had been too rigid, too afraid of change. Teach us, she said suddenly. Not the technology. The thinking. Help us understand how you see the universe. Chen's smile widened. That's exactly what we were hoping you'd ask. 3 days later, the first announcement went out across Council space. Humanity was officially a full member, and they were offering education programs to any species that wanted to learn. The response was overwhelming. Millions of applications flooded in within hours. Scientists, engineers, philosophers, artists. Everyone wanted to understand how humans thought. In her private quarters, Vexithara reviewed the applications. One name caught her attention. Her daughter Lexithera, a young scientist with brilliant potential. She approved the application immediately. Perhaps, she thought, the next generation would bridge the gap between rigid laws and flexible probability, between certainty and possibility. Perhaps together humans and the Council would discover truths neither could have found alone. The universe, it seemed, was about to get much more interesting. The explosion occurred 3 months after humanity joined the Galactic Council. Research Station Gamma-7, operated by the Thol species, simply ceased to exist in a flash of impossible light. Vexithara watched the disaster footage with horror. One moment the station was there. The next it wasn't. In its place was something that made her instruments scream. A sphere of twisted space that shouldn't exist. What were they working on? Consul Prime Tholnax asked, his voice shaking. According to their last transmission, Grenth reported, they were attempting to replicate a human zero-point energy reactor. The silence in the emergency command center was thick with dread. Send rescue teams, Vexithara ordered. And get me Ambassador Chen, now. Chen arrived within the hour, her expression grim as she reviewed the data. They tried to force the quantum field into stability, she said quietly. That's not how it works. You can't command probability. You have to guide it. Can you fix this? Tholnax asked. Maybe, Chen said. But I need authorization to bring in human engineers. This requires equipment you don't have. The authorization came quickly. Nobody wanted a quantum anomaly growing in the middle of Council space. The human team arrived on a small ship that made Vexithara's sensors complain again. Leading them was engineer Marcus Rodriguez, a man with tired eyes and steady hands. All right, he said, studying the anomaly. This is bad but not catastrophic yet. The quantum field is trying to collapse into a stable state, but your colleague's equipment is forcing it to remain unstable. Can you stabilize it? Vexithara asked. No, Rodriguez said. I'm going to convince it to stabilize itself. Different approach. He and his team deployed strange devices around the anomaly. They didn't emit energy or force fields. They just hummed quietly, almost musically. What are those doing? Grenth asked. Singing to the quantum field, Rodriguez said, not joking. Quantum mechanics responds to observation and intention. We're essentially asking nicely for the field to calm down. You're asking it? Tholnak sounded incredulous. Physics isn't your enemy, Rodriguez explained while working. It's more like a dance partner. You lead, it follows, but you have to move together. Your team tried to force it into a box. That never works. Over the next 6 hours, the anomaly slowly shrank. The twisted space unwound itself. By the time Rodriguez powered down his devices, the area was clear. Crisis averted, he said, wiping his forehead. But you need to stop trying to build our reactors. At least 3 other species have reported similar problems. Smaller scale, thankfully. Vexathera felt a chill run through her crystalline body. This is going to keep happening, isn't it? Until people learn the right way to think about this stuff, yeah, Rodriguez admitted. That's why we offered education programs. But the reactor incident wasn't the only crisis. Reports flooded in from across console space. Species trying to replicate human technology were creating disasters. A medical device that accidentally aged its test subject by 50 years. A communication system that somehow connected to people's thoughts. A manufacturing unit that started creating random matter. And then came the worst news. The Vrel Dominion has acquired human technology, Grenth reported during an emergency session. Intelligence confirms they've built weapons based on human designs. The Vrel Dominion had been the console's enemy for generations. A militaristic empire that believed in conquest and domination. They'd been held at bay by superior console technology and numbers. Now they had access to weapons that could rewrite reality. How did they get our designs? Chen demanded. One of your scientists, Vexathera said quietly. Dr. Harold Yates. He was approached by Vrel agents. They offered him money and resources. He thought they wanted to use the technology for peaceful purposes. Chen's face went pale. What did he give them? Everything, Grenth said. Weapons schematics. Power systems. Shield technology. The Vrel paid well. That fool, Chen whispered. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. Understand what? Tholnax asked. Human technology requires human thinking, Chen explained. If the Vrel try to use it with their rigid, domination-focused mindset, the results will be unstable. Dangerous. Dangerous how? Vreshka asked. Chen brought up a simulation. Our weapons work because we accept uncertainty. We don't force matter to cease existing. We suggest that non-existence is more probable. It's gentle, controlled. But if you try to force it, the simulation showed a weapon firing. Instead of cleanly removing the target, space itself began to unravel. The destruction spread in unpredictable patterns. It becomes a quantum cancer. Chen finished, eating through reality itself. 2 days later, the first reports of Vrel attacks came in. They'd struck 3 console border stations simultaneously. The weapons worked after a fashion. The stations were destroyed, but so was everything within 100,000 kilometers. Ships, asteroids, even empty space showed signs of quantum decay. They're killing everything, Vexathera said, watching the footage. Not just their targets, everything. More attacks followed. The Vrel pushed deep into console territory, their unstable weapons clearing paths of destruction. Nothing could stand against them. Console shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, were useless against technology that simply decided their ships probably weren't there anymore. The console fleet fell back, taking heavy losses. Panic spread through member worlds. We need human help, Vreshka finally admitted. Our weapons can't touch them. Our shields can't protect us. If this continues, the Vrel will destroy everything. All eyes turned to Chen. She stood before the console, her usual smile gone. The humans will help, she said. But you need to understand what you're asking. If we deploy our military technology, really deploy it, the universe will see what we're capable of. There's no going back from that. We're already seeing it, Tholnak said, through the Vrel's corrupted version. No, Chen said firmly. You're seeing what happens when someone tries to use our technology without understanding it. If you want to see what we can really do when we understand it perfectly, she paused. It will be frightening. Even to us. Can you stop the Vrel? Vexathera asked. Yes, will you? Chen looked around the chamber. Are you sure? Once we deploy, there's no pretending humans are just another species. Everyone will know what we are. They already know, Grenth said. They've always known. We've just been pretending otherwise. What do you require? Vexthera asked. Full tactical command, Chen said. My military needs to operate without interference. And you need to accept that we'll do things that seem impossible. Will you destroy the Vrel? Someone asked. No, Chen said. We'll stop them. There's a difference. Destruction is easy. We're going to do something harder. We're going to make them understand they made a mistake. The authorization was given. Within hours, human warships began arriving at the front lines. They weren't large or impressive looking, just sleek silver vessels that made sensors malfunction. Captain Rivera contacted Grenth's flagship. We're in position. Beginning probability field deployment. What does that mean? Grenth asked. You'll see, Rivera said. And so will the Vral. The Vral fleet, emboldened by their stolen technology, pushed forward for another attack. 50 warships, each armed with unstable reality warping weapons. They never got to fire. Human ships released something that Grenth's sensors couldn't properly identify. It looked like light, but it moved wrong. Bent wrong. Existed wrong. When it reached the Vral fleet, the enemy ship simply stopped. Frozen in space. Still there, but unable to move or act. What did you do? Grenth asked in awe. We changed the probability of them being able to move, Rivera explained. Right now, from their perspective, movement is so unlikely that it might as well be impossible. They're not hurt. Just stuck. For how long? As long as we maintain the field. Hours, days, years. However long you need. But the demonstration wasn't over. More Vral ships appeared, trying to rescue their frozen fleet. Human ships responded with weapons that Grenth's brain refused to properly process. Beams of probability that made Vral ships forget they had shields. Missiles that convinced enemy reactors they weren't actually producing power. Drones that existed in multiple locations simultaneously, making them impossible to target. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. By the end, 200 Vral warships were either frozen in space or drifting powerless. Not destroyed. Just completely neutralized. We're detecting a transmission from the Vral homeworld, Grenth's communications officer reported. They're requesting negotiations? Chen smiled slightly. See? Understanding achieved. Now comes the hard part. What's the hard part? Vexthera asked. Teaching them not to make the same mistake again, Chen said. And making sure you all don't either. This technology exists now. The question is, what do we do with it? In a detention cell on Station Unity, Dr. Harold Yates sat with his head in his hands, finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd done. He'd given godlike power to a species that saw the universe as something to be conquered. And humanity had just shown everyone what godlike power looked like when wielded correctly. 6 months after the Vral conflict ended, Professor Aidan Okonkwo stood before his first class of alien students at the Human Quantum Academy on Station Unity. 30 beings from 20 different species sat in the lecture hall, watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear. Welcome, he said with a warm smile. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if you can really learn to do what humans do. If your minds can grasp concepts that seem to violate everything you know. A crystalline student in the front row raised a translucent hand. Lexithara, daughter of Consul Prime Vexithara. Is it possible for us? She asked. Our brains aren't wired like yours. Neither was mine once, Okonkwo said. I'm 57 years old. I learned quantum probability manipulation when I was 35, after growing up thinking physics was rigid and absolute. If I can learn, anyone can. He activated a display showing a simple quantum particle. Let me ask you something. Where is this particle? In multiple locations until observed, a Thal student answered immediately. Correct, according to quantum mechanics, Okonkwo said. Now here's the human question. Why does observation collapse the wave function? Silence. The answer is we don't know, Okonkwo said. And more importantly, we stopped trying to know. We accepted that reality is weird and worked with it instead of against it. He held up a small device. This is a basic probability manipulator. Standard human tool. It changes the likelihood of outcomes. How does it work? More silence? Nobody knows, Okonkwo admitted cheerfully. We discovered that certain quantum field configurations make some outcomes more likely. So we use those configurations. We don't understand the deep theory. We just know it works. That's not science, a student protested. Science requires understanding. Science requires results, Okonkwo corrected gently. Understanding comes later, sometimes much later. Humans used fire for thousands of years before we understood combustion chemistry. We're using quantum probability the same way. And someday, maybe one of you will figure out the theory we're missing. Over the following weeks, Okonkwo taught them not formulas or equations, but a way of thinking. He taught them to question assumptions, to accept uncertainty, to see physical laws as patterns rather than rules. It was slow, frustrating work. Centuries of rigid thinking didn't change overnight. Then came the breakthrough. Lexithera had been working on building a basic probability-influenced power cell for days. Every attempt had failed. The quantum field refused to stabilize. I don't understand, she said, frustrated. I'm following the instructions exactly. Okonkwo sat beside her. That's your problem. You're following instructions. You're trying to control the field. Isn't that the point? No, Okonkwo said. The point is to cooperate with it. Here, try something. Stop thinking about what the field should do. Think about what it wants to do. It's a quantum field. It doesn't want anything, doesn't it? Okonkwo asked. Quantum systems seek stable states. They prefer certain configurations. What if, instead of forcing your configuration, you found one the field already likes? Lexithera stared at her equipment. Then slowly, she stopped trying to impose her will on the quantum field. Instead, she observed what patterns emerged naturally and gently encouraged them. The power cell flickered. Then stabilized. Energy readings showed clean, consistent output. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. No, Okonkwo said with a smile. You and the quantum field did it together. News of the breakthrough spread quickly. If one alien student could learn, others could too. Applications to the academy tripled, but not everyone was happy about humanity's growing influence. On the Vrail homeworld, Warlord Threxkar sat in a detention facility, awaiting trial for war crimes. The Vrail government had surrendered after seeing what human technology could really do. Their empire had collapsed in weeks. Threxkar had requested to speak with Ambassador Chen. She agreed, curious about what he wanted. You humiliated us, he said when she arrived. His reptilian features were twisted with anger and something else. Confusion. We stopped you, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Why? Threxkar asked. You could have destroyed us completely. Your weapons could have erased our entire species from existence. Why didn't you? Chen sat down across from him. Because destruction is easy. It's the lazy option. We wanted you to learn something instead. Learn what? That you were using tools you didn't understand, Chen said. The technology Dr. Yates gave you was never going to work properly for you. Your entire military philosophy is based on domination, on forcing others to submit. That mindset is incompatible with probability-based technology. I don't understand, Threxkar admitted. I know, Chen said gently. That's exactly the lesson. You tried to command reality, but reality doesn't take commands. It responds to cooperation, to gentle persuasion, to working with it instead of against it. This is weakness, Threxkar said automatically, though his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Chen asked. We defeated your entire fleet without destroying a single ship. We have technology that can rewrite reality itself. Does that sound weak to you? Threxkar was silent for a long moment. What happens to us now? That depends on you, Chen said. The Council will decide your personal fate. But your species, they have a choice. They can remain isolated, clinging to old ways, or they can learn, like everyone else is learning. Learn to be like humans? No, Chen said firmly. Learn to think differently, to question assumptions, to accept uncertainty. The Vrail are warriors. That's not wrong. But maybe you can be warriors who fight for something other than domination. Warriors who protect instead of conquer. After she left, Threxkar sat in his cell thinking about her words. For the first time in his life, he wasn't certain about anything. Meanwhile, across console space, the paradigm shift continued. Species that had relied on rigid engineering for millennia began experimenting with probability-based approaches, not copying human technology directly, but learning human thinking and applying it to their own methods. A Thal engineer developed a new kind of shield that didn't block energy, but convinced energy it didn't want to be there. A merchant species created a communication system that didn't transmit signals but made receivers believe they'd already received them. A medical team found a way to encourage cells to heal themselves rather than forcing them through chemical intervention. None of it worked quite like human technology, but all of it worked better than what they'd had before. 6 months after the first breakthrough, Vexithara visited the academy to see her daughter's progress. She found Lexithara in a laboratory, working alongside a human student on a joint project. "What are you building?" Vexithara asked. "A hybrid drive system," Lexithara explained excitedly. "It combines human probability tunneling with traditional console precision engineering. The human part handles the quantum uncertainty, while the console part ensures stable transitions." "Does it work?" "We're about to find out," the human student said. They activated the prototype. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the device began to hum, not with the chaotic energy of pure human technology, not with the rigid stability of console engineering, but with something in between. "Something new. It's stable," Lexithara breathed. "It's actually stable." Vexithara felt something shift inside her. This was the future. Not human dominance, not console tradition, but both together, creating something neither could achieve alone. In Earth's orbit, Ambassador Chen met with the console leadership for a final evaluation of humanity's membership. 6 months ago, we weren't sure if this would work, Tholnax admitted. "Humans are so different from us. Your technology is so far beyond what we knew was possible." "And now?" Chen asked. "Now I realize we were asking the wrong question," Vexithara said. "We kept asking if you were more advanced than us. But advancement isn't linear. It's not a ladder where someone is higher or lower. It's more like a forest where different trees grow in different directions." "Poetic," Chen said with a smile. "What I mean is," Vexithara continued, "humans aren't more advanced. You're differently advanced. You excel at quantum probability because your environment taught you to think that way. But you struggle with some things that are easy for us. Precision manufacturing, long-term planning, social stability." "That's true," Chen admitted. "We're still working on some of those things." "So perhaps," Grenth suggested, "the real value of the console isn't that we're all the same. It's that we're all different. Each species sees the universe through different eyes. Together we see more than any of us could alone." "I couldn't have said it better," Chen agreed. The formal vote came the next day. Humanity's provisional status was removed. They were now full members of the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities. But more importantly, the Council had changed. The rigid thinking that had dominated for generations was giving way to something more flexible, more open to possibility. 1 year after first contact, a joint Council-human exploration ship launched into unknown space. The crew was mixed, representing 20 different species. The ship used hybrid technology, combining human quantum manipulation with alien precision engineering. Captain Rivera stood on the bridge alongside Vexithara, who'd accepted the position of Chief Science Officer. "Ready for the first jump?" Rivera asked. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of the Crimson Talon with his forearms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the red lighting of the command center. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the quiet efficiency of warriors who had served together for many cycles. The Korvath Dominion had ruled this sector of space for over 3,000 years, and Zektar had never known defeat. The tactical officer's voice broke the comfortable silence. "Commander, we have detected an unknown vessel ahead. It appears to be drifting." Zektar's eyes narrowed. Unknown vessels were rare in this part of space. The Galactic Coalition had mapped every spacefaring species in the known galaxy. He moved toward the main display screen with smooth, practiced steps. "Show me," he commanded. The screen flickered to life, displaying a strange ship floating in the darkness of space. It was smaller than the Crimson Talon, maybe a quarter of the size. The design looked odd to Zektar's experienced eyes. The hull was white and gray with unusual angles and curves. It had none of the elegant flowing lines of Korvath vessels or the geometric precision of other Coalition ships. "Run a full scan," Zektar ordered. "Check the database for any matching species." The science officer worked quickly, her fingers dancing across her console. After a moment, she looked up with confusion on her face. "Commander, the vessel is not in our records. The technology readings are strange. The power signature is inefficient, almost primitive. The hull material appears to be simple metal alloys with some kind of ceramic coating. Zektar moved closer to the screen, studying the vessel with growing interest. On its side, he could see markings in an unknown script. The universal translator struggled with it for a moment before producing a rough translation. UEDF Odyssey. UEDF, Zektar repeated slowly. What does that mean? Unknown, Commander, the science officer replied. The language is not in our database either. This appears to be a species that has never been contacted before. A low rumble of laughter spread through the bridge crew. First contact with a primitive species was always amusing. These encounters usually ended quickly, with the less advanced species either begging to join the coalition or fleeing back to their homeworlds in fear. How primitive are we talking? Asked Vekral, the weapons officer. He was younger than most of the crew, eager to prove himself. Based on the power readings and hull composition, I would estimate they achieved spaceflight perhaps 200 or 300 cycles ago, the science officer answered. They are using chemical rockets for maneuvering. Chemical rockets, Commander, like something from our ancient history. More laughter filled the bridge. Chemical rockets were what children learned about in history classes, not what any serious spacefaring species used. Zektar felt a smile cross his face. This would be entertaining at least. Tactical position. Are they armed? The tactical officer studied his screens carefully. There are some energy signatures that might be weapons, but they are weak. Nothing that could threaten our shields. The vessel appears to be some kind of exploration or science ship. Of course it is, Zektar said. They wandered too far from home and got lost. Probably their first time leaving their own star system. He straightened to his full height. Set an intercept course. Activate intimidation protocols. Yes, Commander. The Crimson Talon turned smoothly through space, its massive engines glowing brighter as it accelerated toward the strange human vessel. As they approached, the ship's external weapons arrays began to glow with barely contained energy. Lights pulsed along the hull in patterns designed to show dominance and power. It was a display that had made hundreds of species submit without a shot being fired. Zektar watched the unknown vessel grow larger on the screen. It still had not moved or reacted to their approach. Either they had not detected the Crimson Talon yet, which would be pathetic, or they were frozen in fear, which would be understandable. Communications. Send the standard demand on all frequencies, Zektar ordered. Tell them to identify themselves and prepare for boarding inspection. The communications officer nodded and began transmitting. The message was simple and direct, translated into mathematical concepts that any species with spaceflight should understand. Identify yourselves. Power down your systems. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will not be tolerated. The bridge crew waited. Seconds passed. Then a full minute. No response, Commander, the communications officer reported. Perhaps their communications equipment is as primitive as the rest of their ship, Vekral suggested. They probably cannot even understand us. Zektar was about to order a closer approach when the communications console beeped. Wait, Commander, we are receiving a transmission. Audio only. Play it. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in that strange alien language. The universal translator worked furiously to decode it in real time, producing a choppy but understandable translation. This is Captain Maria Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of our exclusion zone. Power down weapons and state your intentions. The bridge fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then laughter erupted from every station. Even Zektar could not help but chuckle at the absurdity of it. Their exclusion zone? Vekral gasped between laughs. Did these primitives just claim this sector of space? Their defense force, another officer added. They have a defense force, one tiny ship with chemical rockets. Zektar held up a hand for silence, though he was still smiling. This was better than he had expected. These creatures, these humans, had confidence that far exceeded their capabilities. It was almost charming in its foolishness. Scan their ship again, he ordered. How many life forms aboard? Approximately 200, Commander, the science officer replied, all concentrated in the central sections of the vessel. 200. Crew members on a ship that size meant cramped quarters and limited supplies. They were far from home, alone in space, and facing a vessel that outgunned them completely. Yet they had the courage, or stupidity, to issue demands. Zektar opened a communication channel. Unknown vessel, I am Commander Zektar of the Korvath Dominion. You are in Galactic Coalition space. Your primitive vessel is no match for our battlecruiser. You will surrender your ship for inspection immediately, or we will take it by force. He waited for their response, expecting panic or desperate pleas for mercy. What he heard instead made his smile fade slightly. The human voice came back, calm and cold like ice. Commander Zektar, you have 30 seconds to comply with our previous order. Power down your weapons and withdraw to a safe distance. This is your only warning. The bridge fell silent again, but this time no one was laughing. The sheer audacity of the statement was stunning. Did they just threaten us? Vekral asked quietly. Zektar felt his temper rising. He had given these primitives a chance to surrender peacefully. He had even been polite about it. Now they dared to issue warnings to him? To the Crimson Talon? Weapons officer, lock all forward plasma cannons on their vessel, Zektar ordered, his voice hard. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Let us see how brave these humans are when they see real power. Yes, Commander. Weapons locked. Zektar crossed his arms and watched the screen. He would teach these mammals a lesson they would never forget. By the time he was done, they would be begging to tell him everything about their primitive little world. Fire, he commanded. The forward plasma cannons of the Crimson Talon glowed bright orange as they charged. Zektar watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The warning shot would pass close to the human vessel, close enough that their primitive sensors would register the massive energy discharge, close enough to make them understand how outmatched they were. Firing solution locked, Commander, Vekral reported. The shot will pass 30 meters from their hull. They will definitely see it. Execute, Zektar said calmly. A brilliant bolt of superheated plasma erupted from the Crimson Talon's main cannon. It streaked through the darkness of space, leaving a trail of radiation in its wake. The bolt was powerful enough to melt through a small asteroid. It was more than enough to terrify a primitive species. Zektar expected to see the human vessel attempt to flee, or perhaps desperately try to activate whatever weak shields they might have. What happened instead made his blood run cold. A section of the Odyssey's hull split open with mechanical precision. Something launched from inside, moving faster than anything Zektar had seen before. Multiple thin beams of red light shot out from the human ship, so fast they seemed almost instantaneous. The plasma bolt simply disappeared. What just happened? Zektar demanded, leaning forward. The science officer was frantically checking her instruments. Commander, they used some kind of point defense laser system. Multiple lasers working together. They vaporized our plasma bolt before it could reach them. That is impossible, Vekral said, his voice uncertain. Laser point defense requires enormous amounts of energy and precision targeting. The Coalition abandoned that technology centuries ago because it was too inefficient. But the proof was on the screen. The plasma bolt was gone and the human ship sat there unchanged. Before anyone could speak, the tactical officer's console erupted with warning signals. Commander! Multiple objects deploying from the human vessel. They are scattering in a pattern around us. What kind of objects? Zektar asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Unknown. Small, maybe 2 meters each. They are emitting strong electromagnetic signals. Commander, our targeting systems are experiencing interference. The main tactical display flickered and distorted. Red warning lights began flashing across multiple consoles. The smooth efficiency of the bridge turned into controlled chaos as crew members tried to restore their systems. Countermeasures, the science officer said with growing concern. They deployed electronic warfare countermeasures. Our sensors cannot lock onto them properly anymore. Zektar felt the first touch of real concern. These were not the actions of a primitive species. These were calculated professional military tactics. Reroute power to sensors, he ordered. Burn through the interference. I want to know exactly what we are facing. The communications officer suddenly shouted, Commander! High-speed launch detected. Multiple contacts incoming. Shields. Zektar roared. Full power to shields. The Crimson Talon's defensive shields flared to life, creating an invisible barrier of energy around the ship. The shields could stop plasma weapons, particle beams, and even small missiles. They had protected the ship through dozens of battles. Zektar trusted them completely. That trust lasted exactly 2 seconds. 3 objects hit the shields. They were not energy weapons. They were not missiles with explosive warheads. They were solid projectiles, chunks of dense metal accelerated to impossible speeds. The shields barely slowed them down. The tungsten rounds punched through the energy barrier like it was not even there. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. The impact sent shudders through the entire vessel. Zektar grabbed his command chair to keep from falling. "Damage report," he shouted over the chaos. The tactical officer's voice was shaking. "Commander, we have been hit. 3 impacts. Forward weapons array is destroyed. Engine control has been severed. Life support to decks 7 through 12 is offline." "How?" Zektar could not believe what he was hearing. "Our shields should have stopped anything." The science officer was staring at her console in horror. "Commander, those were not energy weapons. They were kinetic projectiles. Solid metal accelerated to approximately 3% of light speed. Our shields are designed to stop energy attacks, not physical objects moving that fast." Zektar felt his world tilting. Kinetic weapons. The Galactic Coalition had stopped using kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They were considered primitive, inelegant, and inefficient. Energy weapons were cleaner, more controllable, and more civilized. No one had ever considered that kinetic weapons might be better specifically because shields were designed to stop energy. "Time from their launch to impact?" Zektar asked quietly. 4.7 seconds, Commander. 4.7 seconds. In less than 5 seconds, these humans had disabled a Korvath battlecruiser. They had done it with weapons so simple, so basic, that the Korvath had never even considered defending against them. The communication channel crackled to life. That same calm human voice spoke again, but this time there was something different in the tone. Something cold and final. "Commander Zektar, that was your warning shot. The next salvo will not be surgical. You will not survive it." Zektar stared at the screen, at the small white and gray vessel that had just crippled his ship. The Odyssey had not moved. It had not even turned to face them. It had simply deployed weapons, fired, and resumed its previous position. Clinical, professional, deadly. "Commander, what are your orders?" Vekral asked. The young officer's confidence had completely vanished. Zektar looked around his bridge. Half the systems were offline. His weapons were destroyed. His engines were barely functioning. If the humans fired again, the Crimson Talon would be turned into scrap metal floating in space. He had spent 40 years in the Korvath military. He had commanded ships in 3 campaigns. He had received the Star of Valor twice, and now, within minutes of encountering an unknown species, he was facing complete defeat. "Open a channel to the human vessel," Zektar said, his voice hollow. "Tell them we wish to negotiate." The communications officer worked quickly. "Channel open, Commander." Zektar took a deep breath. He had rehearsed surrender protocols in training, but he never thought he would actually use them. "Captain Chen, this is Commander Zektar. We acknowledge your superior position. We request terms for peaceful resolution of this encounter." There was a long pause. Zektar could imagine the humans discussing their response, deciding whether to finish off the Crimson Talon or show mercy to a defeated enemy. Finally, the human voice returned. "Commander, this is Captain Chen. Your request is acknowledged. Stand by for visual communication." The main screen changed. For the first time, Zektar saw a human. Captain Maria Chen sat in a command chair similar to his own, though the bridge behind her looked more cramped and utilitarian than the Crimson Talon's elegant command center. She was smaller than Zektar, with only 2 arms and 2 legs. Her skin was tan, her hair dark and pulled back in a tight formation. But what struck Zektar most were her eyes. They were the eyes of a predator. Forward-facing, focused, calculating. The eyes of a hunter. Chen studied him for a moment, her expression neutral. "Commander Zektar of the Korvath Dominion. We need to talk." Zektar straightened as much as his wounded pride would allow. "Captain Chen, I must confess surprise at your capabilities. Your vessel appeared to be less advanced than ours." A slight smile crossed Chen's face, but it did not reach her eyes. "Commander, you made several mistakes today. I'm going to explain them to you, because you are going to deliver a message for me. Do you understand?" Zektar nodded slowly. He understood perfectly. He was being allowed to live for a purpose. Good, Chen continued. Let me tell you about humanity, Commander. Let me tell you what you just encountered. Captain Maria Chen stood from her command chair and moved closer to the camera. Behind her, Zektar could see the human bridge crew working at their stations. They looked calm, focused, completely unbothered by the fact that they had just destroyed the weapons of a much larger warship. Your first mistake, Commander, was assuming that advanced technology means superior weapons, Chen began. Her voice was steady, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. Your shields are impressive. They can stop plasma bolts, particle beams, all kinds of energy weapons. Very sophisticated, Zektar said nothing. He listened. But sophistication is not the same as effectiveness, Chen continued. Our weapons are simple. Take a dense metal, accelerate it to a significant fraction of light speed and aim carefully. Physics does the rest. Mass times velocity equals momentum. Your shields were not designed to stop solid objects. They were designed for an elegant, civilized form of warfare. She smiled again, and this time there was something dangerous in that smile. Humans are not elegant, Commander. We are practical. Vekro leaned close to Zektar and whispered, Commander, this is insane. They are using primitive projectile weapons. How can they accelerate them to such speeds with their technology level? Chen must have heard him despite the distance because she looked directly at the weapons officer. Railguns and coilguns officer. Electromagnetic acceleration. We have been using the basic principles for over 300 years. We just kept making them better, faster, more accurate. While you were perfecting your energy weapons, we were perfecting aim. Zektar felt a chill run through him. 300 years of development on weapons that the Galactic Coalition had abandoned as primitive. What else had humanity perfected, while the rest of the galaxy moved in different directions? Your second mistake, Chen said, pacing slowly, was assuming a lone ship meant we were vulnerable. She gestured to someone off-screen. A moment later, the display on the Crimson Talon's bridge changed to show a tactical map. Zektar's eyes widened. There were ships. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. All broadcasting the same identification codes as the Odyssey. All positioned in a sphere formation, 17 light hours away from their current position. The Odyssey is a scout vessel, Commander, Chen explained. We are the first wave. We are designed to be found. When we encounter unknown species, we assess their intentions. Are they peaceful? Are they hostile? How do they respond to contact? She looked directly at Zektar. You chose hostility. You chose to fire first, but we fired a warning shot, Zektar protested. We did not intend to destroy your vessel. You fired a weapon at us after we told you to stand down, Chen replied coldly. In human military doctrine, that is an act of war. The only reason you are still alive is because I recognized your warning shot for what it was. A more aggressive captain might have responded with full force. The science officer checked her long-range sensors and confirmed what the map showed. Commander, she is telling the truth. There are multiple vessels moving toward our position. They are beginning faster than light jumps. They will be here within the hour. Zektar felt his hands trembling. He clasped them behind his back to hide the weakness. Captain Chen, if your fleet arrives, this incident could escalate into a war between our species. Surely you do not want that, don't I? Chen tilted her head slightly. Commander, let me tell you about humanity's history. Let me explain your third and most foolish mistake. She walked back to her command chair and sat down, her posture relaxed but alert. Like a predator resting but ready to spring. Humans evolved on a death world, Commander. Our planet had extreme weather, dangerous animals, diseases, and natural disasters. We survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the most stubborn. We never gave up. We never surrendered. When something tried to kill us, we learned how to kill it back. Zektar watched as images appeared on the screen. A blue and green planet that looked beautiful from space. Then images of massive storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes that split the ground open. We climbed to the top of our food chain, Chen continued. We became the dominant species on our world. And then, Commander, we got bored. The images changed. Zektar saw humans fighting each other. Thousands of them. Hundreds of thousands. The battles looked primitive at first with simple weapons, but they grew more sophisticated over time. For 10,000 years we fought each other, Chen said quietly. We divided ourselves by tribe, by nation, by religion, by ideology. We invented new ways to kill each other. We turned everything we learned into weapons. Chemistry became chemical weapons. Biology became biological weapons. Physics became nuclear weapons. We fought 2 wars that killed millions. We nearly destroyed ourselves dozens of times. The images showed mushroom clouds rising over cities. The devastation was horrific. But we did not destroy ourselves, Chen said. We learned. Slowly, painfully. We learned to work together. We unified our world under one government. Not because we suddenly became peaceful, Commander. We unified because we needed to prepare. Prepare for what? Zektar asked, though he feared he knew the answer. For you, Chen replied simply. For the moment when we would leave our world and discover we were not alone. We knew there would be other species out there. We knew some of them would be peaceful, and we knew some of them would be like you, approaching with weapons powered and demands ready. She leaned forward. So we prepared. We took everything we learned from killing each other and we refined it. We built ships. We built weapons. We trained soldiers. The United Earth Defense Force exists for one purpose: to make sure that when humanity meets hostile aliens, we survive. Zektar understood now. The Odyssey was not a helpless exploration vessel. It was bait, a trap, a test to see how other species would respond to contact. Humanity only unified 50 years ago, Commander, Chen continued. Before that, we were fragments. Dozens of nations with different languages, different beliefs, different goals. All of us fighting, competing, struggling against each other. Do you know what that means? She did not wait for an answer. It means we are very, very good at war. It is the only thing we have practiced our entire existence. While your species spent 3,000 years building an empire and maintaining peace, we spent 10,000 years finding better ways to destroy each other. You have experience with war. We have expertise in it. The tactical officer suddenly spoke up. Commander, 3 human vessels have just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They are taking up positions around us. On the screen, Zektar could see 3 ships similar to the Odyssey but larger. Their weapons ports were open. Their engines glowed with power. Chen nodded. That is the second wave. The third wave will arrive in 15 minutes. The fourth and 30, we can keep this up all day, Commander. You fired on 1 scout ship. Now you get to see what humanity brings to a fight. Zektar looked at his crew. They were frightened. His ship was crippled. More human vessels were arriving. He had no chance of escape, no chance of victory. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to deliver a message, Chen said. I want you to go back to your Korvath Dominion and tell them everything that happened here. Tell them that humanity has arrived in the galaxy. Tell them we are claiming this sector of space as our territory. Tell them we are not interested in joining their galactic coalition. Not right now. She paused, making sure he understood every word. And tell them, Commander, that if they want to test us again, if they want to see what humanity can really do when we are threatened, we will be ready. We are always ready. Zektar bowed his head. I understand, Captain Chen. I will deliver your message. Good, Chen said. We will tow your vessel to the edge of this sector. Your crew will not be harmed, but you will leave, and you will not return unless you come in peace. The screen went dark. Zektar stood in the silence of his ruined bridge and realized he had just made the worst mistake of his military career. He had attacked humanity expecting an easy victory and found something far worse. He had found a species that never learned how to surrender. The journey back to Korvath space took 3 days. 3 days of humiliation as human vessels towed the crippled Crimson Talon like a piece of salvage. 3 days of watching his crew work in silence, their confidence shattered. 3 days for Zektar to think about what had happened. The humans had been efficient. They repaired the life support systems but left the weapons destroyed. They provided food and medical supplies but kept the Crimson Talon under constant surveillance. Always 3 human ships nearby, always watching, always ready. When they finally reached the border of Coalition space, Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system one last time. Commander Zektar, you are free to go. Remember your message. Remember what happened here. The tow lines disengaged. The Crimson Talon drifted free, its emergency engines barely able to provide thrust. Zektar watched on his screen as the human vessels turned and disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving him alone with his shame. Set course for High Command, Zektar ordered quietly. Best possible speed. It took another 2 days to limp back to the Korvath homeworld. As they approached, Zektar received a priority communication. He was ordered to report directly to the Council of Commanders immediately upon arrival. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. 20 of the most senior commanders in the Korvath military sat in judgment. At the center, on the floor of the chamber, stood a single chair. The chair for those who had failed. Zektar entered in full uniform, his medals removed as custom dictated. He walked to the chair and sat facing the council. Above him, 20 pairs of eyes stared down with cold evaluation. High Commander Trelvik spoke first. He was ancient. His purple skin faded to almost gray, but his voice was still strong. Commander Zektar, you filed a report claiming you were defeated by an unknown species using primitive weapons. The Council has reviewed your sensor logs and crew testimonies. Before we proceed, we need to hear your account directly. Zektar stood. In the Korvath military, one stood to confess failure. High Commander, Honored Council, everything in my report is accurate. The Crimson Talon encountered a vessel from a species calling themselves humans. When I attempted to enforce coalition authority, they responded with overwhelming force. They destroyed my weapons in less than 5 seconds using kinetic projectile weapons. I had no choice but to surrender. A murmur ran through the council. One of the younger commanders, Velkoth, leaned forward. You surrendered to a single vessel? A vessel smaller than your own? The single vessel disabled my ship, Zektar replied. Multiple additional vessels arrived within minutes. I was outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender was the only option that did not result in the death of my entire crew. These kinetic weapons, Trelvik said thoughtfully. Your report says they use simple projectiles. How is this possible? Our shields should stop such attacks. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, Zektar explained. The humans exploited a weakness we did not know we had. Their projectiles were accelerated to relativistic speeds. At those velocities, solid matter passes through energy shields as if they were not there. The science advisor to the council spoke up from her position. I have analyzed the sensor data. The human weapons are indeed simple in concept, but the execution is masterful. The targeting accuracy, the velocity achieved, the coordination of their point defense systems, all of it shows a level of refinement that takes centuries to develop. Another commander spoke, but you said they were primitive. How can they be both primitive and refined? They are primitive in their methods, Zektar answered, but expert in their application. Captain Chen explained it to me. While we were developing energy weapons and shields, they were perfecting kinetic weapons. While we were building elegant solutions, they were building effective ones. Trelvik raised a hand for silence. Tell us about this Captain Chen. Tell us about the humans themselves. Zektar closed his eyes for a moment, remembering Chen's predator stare. Captain Chen was professional, intelligent, and completely confident. She explained that humanity evolved on what she called a death world, a planet with extreme conditions that forced them to become excellent survivors. He opened his eyes and looked at the council. High Commander, the humans are not like any species we have encountered. They do not have our strength or the speed of the Veltari, or the intelligence of the Zendari. What they have is persistence. They do not know how to quit. They do not understand surrender. Explain, Trelvik commanded. Captain Chen told me that humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other. Zektar continued. Not border skirmishes or minor conflicts. Total wars that killed millions. They invented weapons specifically designed to destroy their own cities. They created diseases to kill their own kind. They split atoms and created bombs that could level mountains. The council chamber fell completely silent. And they used these weapons on themselves? Velkoth asked with disbelief. Yes, Zektar confirmed. They fought wars that nearly destroyed their entire species. Multiple times. But they survived. They learned. And 50 years ago, they finally unified their world under a single government. Not because they became peaceful, but because they needed to prepare for the day they would meet other species. The science advisor was checking her data pad frantically. This is, High Commander, I am cross-referencing our long-range surveys. We did locate a planet matching this description about 200 years ago. It was marked as pre-contact and dangerous. The planet showed evidence of nuclear weapons testing. We decided to avoid contact for at least another 1,000 years. And now they have found us first, Trelvik said grimly. Continue, Commander Zektar. Captain Chen made it clear that the Odyssey was a scout vessel. Zektar said, it was designed to be found. It was a test of how other species would react to first contact. I failed that test by showing hostility. Within the hour, hundreds of additional human vessels arrived in the area, all armed. All ready for battle, he took a deep breath. High Commander, humanity is not a peaceful species. They are a warrior species. The only difference is that they used to fight each other, and now they are unified. Every tactical doctrine they possess, every weapon system they have developed, every strategic principle they know, all of it was learned through warfare against opponents of equal technology and determination. Another commander spoke. You mentioned a message. What message did the humans send? Captain Chen instructed me to tell the Korvath Dominion, and by extension the entire Galactic Coalition, that humanity is claiming the sector where we met as their territory. They are not interested in joining the Coalition at this time, and they made it very clear that any future contact must be peaceful, or they will respond with full military force. They dare to claim Coalition space? Velkoth said angrily. They dare to threaten us? With respect, Commander Velkoth, they did not threaten, Zektar replied. They promised. There is a difference. A threat is meant to intimidate. A promise is a statement of certain action. Captain Chen promised that if we return with hostile intent, humanity will be ready. And after seeing what one of their scout vessels did to the Crimson Talon, I believe that promise completely. Trelvik was quiet for a long moment, considering everything he had heard. Finally, he looked at Zektar with something that might have been respect. Commander Zektar, the Council does not find you at fault for this encounter. You acted according to standard protocol. The fault lies with our assumptions. We assumed that any species we encountered would be less advanced or willing to negotiate. We never considered that we might meet a species that weaponized warfare itself. He turned to address the full Council. We must call an emergency session of the Galactic Coalition. All member species need to know about humanity. We need to decide how to respond. Should we prepare for war? Velkoth asked. That, Trelvik said slowly, is exactly what we need to discuss. Because if Commander Zektar's report is accurate, war with humanity might be a war we cannot win. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some commanders called for immediate military buildup. Others urged diplomatic contact. Some even suggested ignoring humanity's claims and hoping they would remain in their own territory. Zektar sat in his chair at the center of it all and thought about Captain Chen's final words. We are always ready. He had no doubt that she meant it. Humanity had spent their entire existence preparing for war. The question was whether the Galactic Coalition was ready to face an enemy that never learned how to lose. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council took place 3 weeks after Zektar's return. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the council station, a massive structure floating in neutral space. The station had hosted peaceful discussions for over 2,000 years. Today, the peace felt fragile. Ambassador Shelvara of the Zendari, the oldest and most respected species in the coalition, called the session to order. Her crystalline form reflected the lights of the chamber as she spoke in her soft musical voice. Honored delegates, we are here to discuss a matter of great importance. A new species has been encountered. The Korvath delegation has presented evidence of this species and the encounter that took place. We have all reviewed the data. Now we must decide how the coalition will respond. The chamber filled with the sound of delegates speaking in dozens of different languages, all translated in real time. The general mood was one of concern mixed with disbelief. The Veltari ambassador, a tall insectoid being with 4 wings, was the first to speak. Ambassador Shelvara, with respect, the Korvath report seems exaggerated. One small vessel defeating a battlecruiser, using primitive weapons? This seems unlikely. High Commander Trelvik rose to respond. He had been granted special permission to address the council directly. Ambassador, I understand your skepticism. I was skeptical myself, but the censored data does not lie. The damage to the Crimson Talon was real. The weapons signatures were real, and I have since learned that we are not the only species to encounter humans. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Shelvara raised a crystalline hand for silence. High Commander, please explain. Trelvik activated a holographic display. It showed a map of known space with several points highlighted. In the past 6 months, 5 different coalition patrol vessels have reported encounters with human ships. Most were brief and peaceful. But in every case, the human vessels demonstrated advanced tactical capabilities and made it clear they were claiming territory. A delegate from the quarry, a peaceful aquatic species, spoke up. If these encounters were peaceful, why are we concerned? Because in 2 cases, the patrol vessels attempted to assert coalition authority, Trelvik replied. In both cases, the human ships responded with immediate and overwhelming force. Both patrol vessels were disabled within seconds and then towed to coalition space, just like the Crimson Talon. The Veltari ambassador's antennae twitched nervously. They are expanding into our space and defeating our ships. This is an act of war, is it? Shelvara asked calmly. Have the humans attacked any civilian vessels? Have they invaded any inhabited systems? Have they made demands of the coalition itself? No, Trelvik admitted. They have only responded to military vessels that approach them with hostile intent or demands. They have avoided all civilian traffic. A small furry delegate from the Pixen spoke in a high-pitched voice. Then perhaps they are not the aggressors. Perhaps we are. The chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates agreed with the Pixen. Others insisted that humanity's mere presence in coalition space was an act of aggression. The debate went on for hours with no clear resolution. Finally, Shelvara called for silence again. We need more information. I propose we send a formal diplomatic mission to make contact with humanity. A peaceful mission, clearly marked with representatives from multiple species. We will invite them to join the coalition or at least establish formal relations. The vote was close, but the proposal passed. The coalition would attempt peaceful contact. What the delegates did not know was that while they were debating, intelligence reports were flooding in from coalition deep space monitoring stations. Reports that would change everything. 2 months later, the diplomatic mission departed. It consisted of 5 ships, each carrying ambassadors from different species. They traveled to the coordinates where the Odyssey had first been encountered, broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies. They found a human fleet waiting for them. Not 1 ship. Not a dozen. 300 vessels arranged in perfect formation. Battleships, carriers, support vessels, all bearing the same symbol, a blue and green planet encircled by stars. The lead ambassador, a Zandari named Krelvos, stared at the tactical display in wonder and fear. There are so many. How did they build so many ships so quickly? His science officer checked the scans. Ambassador, based on the material composition and wear patterns, these vessels are not new. Most of them are at least 30 to 50 years old. 50 years? Krelvos whispered. That means they had this fleet before they even unified. The implications were staggering. Humanity had built a war fleet while they were still fighting each other. They had prepared for space warfare before they even knew for certain that aliens existed. A communication came through. Coalition vessels, this is Admiral James Kowalski of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your request for diplomatic contact. We accept. Please follow the designated coordinates to our diplomatic station. The coalition ships were escorted through the human fleet. Krelvos watched the ships passing by. Each one was different, bearing markings from different nations. The old nations of Earth before unification. Some ships looked sleek and advanced. Others looked crude and functional. But all of them were armed. All of them were ready. The diplomatic station was a newly constructed structure near the edge of human-claimed space. It was simple compared to the Coalition's Grand Council station, but it was clearly built to accommodate multiple species. The meeting took place in a large chamber with gravity and atmosphere adjusted for comfort. The Coalition delegation entered nervously, unsure what to expect. They found a single human waiting for them. She was older than Captain Chen, with gray hair and dark skin. She wore a simple suit with no military insignia. When she smiled, it was warm and genuine. Welcome, she said. I am Ambassador Aisha Okonkwo. On behalf of the United Earth Government, I thank you for coming in peace. Krelvos bowed in the Zendari fashion. Ambassador Okonkwo, I am Krelvos, speaking for the Galactic Coalition. We have come to discuss relations between our peoples. I am glad, Okonkwo replied. Please sit. We have much to discuss. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. The coalition delegates quickly realized they were dealing with experts. Ambassador Okonkwo was polite, friendly even, but she did not yield on any important points. Yes, humanity wanted peaceful relations with the coalition. No, humanity would not stop claiming territory they considered strategically important. Yes, humanity would respect coalition borders. No, humanity would not join the coalition as a member species, not yet. Why not? Krelvos asked on the second day. The coalition offers protection, trade, shared technology. Why refuse these benefits? Okonkwo looked at him with patient eyes. Ambassador, humanity spent 10,000 years divided. We have been truly unified for only 50 years. We are still learning how to work together as one species. Joining a coalition of 47 different species, each with their own interests and politics, would be premature. And the territory you claim? The Veltari ambassador pressed. Those systems were surveyed by coalition vessels centuries ago. Surveyed but not settled, Okonkwo countered. No coalition species has colonies there. No civilians have been displaced. We are claiming empty space for human expansion. But it is coalition space, the ambassador insisted. Okonkwo's expression did not change, but her voice became firmer. It was coalition space. Now it is human space. We have the ships to defend it and the will to keep it. I am not being cruel, Ambassador. I am being honest. The coalition can choose to recognize our claim peacefully, or they can choose to contest it with military force. But the outcome will be the same. The stark truth of her words settled over the room. On the third day, Krelvos asked the question that everyone wanted answered. Ambassador Okonkwo, what does humanity want? What is your goal in the galaxy? Okonkwo stood and walked to a large window showing the stars beyond. We want what every species wants, Ambassador. We want to survive. We want to grow. We want to explore and learn and build a future for our children. She turned back to face them. But we also want something else. We want to be ready. Ready for what? Krelvos asked. For whatever comes next, Okonkwo replied. The galaxy seems peaceful now. The coalition has maintained stability for thousands of years. But humanity knows that peace does not last forever. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, there might be threats you cannot imagine. When that day comes, when the peace finally breaks, we want the galaxy to have allies who know how to fight. She smiled again, but there was steel in it. The coalition has forgotten how to war. Humanity remembers. We are not your enemies, Ambassador. We are your insurance policy. The meeting ended with a formal agreement. The coalition would recognize human territorial claims in exchange for a non-aggression pact and limited trade relations. Humanity would not join the coalition, but would maintain open communication. It was not the outcome the coalition had hoped for, but it was better than war. As the diplomatic mission prepared to depart, Krelvos had one final conversation with Ambassador Okonkwo. May I ask you something personal? He said quietly. Of course. Are you really ready to fight the entire coalition if necessary? All 47 species?